In news that I'm sure will excite a lot of Xbox fans out there, Phil Spencer took to Twitter, as he normally does, and says that work has begun on new first party games. So let's talk about that, shall we? What is going on, guys? Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. And man, Phil Spencer sure does love to talk about stuff on Twitter. He usually answers a whole bunch of fan questions, and he said what a lot of people have wanted to hear for some time. Now, one of the common, most heard criticisms you'll hear against Xbox is that it has no games. But that's not necessarily true. When people say it has no games, they really mean it has no fire or banger exclusive games. That the exclusive experience is lacking on Xbox One because there aren't that many first party titles to come out for the system. And this year was bad. We've talked about it before. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but 2017 wasn't the best year for Microsoft's first-party studios. Now, Phil has mentioned before in interviews at E3, and I've talked about it on my channel, there was things he wanted to do in a specific order when he took over the job from Don Matrick back in 2014. And the first thing he wanted to do was he wanted to fix the hardware. He felt that that was a problem and something they needed to change. And now we have the Xbox One X, the most powerful console on the market, a much better system than the Xbox One. If you're an Xbox fan, I posted my review. I feel like if you're on Xbox, that's where your friends are, if you play it every single day, I think it's worth the $500 to experience games running at their best. This is nothing about Sony or Nintendo. This is strictly from Xbox to Xbox. I think it's worth the upgrade. And then he wanted to do stuff with Xbox Live and backwards compatibility, and all those things are nailed down. The OS work, the back compat work, and then it was first party stuff. Now, there was other questions he answered. Someone asked him about a Uncharted a game, and Phil kind of said, yeah, he would like to have one too. You can see the exchanges here. Phil, I just bought an Xbox One X. I would like to see a studio that pumps out nothing but action-adventure type games, kind of like Uncharted, and also have a strong multiplayer component tied to it. Phil replies, me too. If only we could have the best single-player and best multiplayer in one studio and one IP. Is that too much to ask? There was a time where Halo fit that bill. When Bungie made Halo, you could arguably make an argument. What a set of words there, Rand. That they made the best single player and the best multiplayer. Halo 3 comes to mind, and that was one IP. Now, you can't really say that anymore with 343, but at some point in time, Xbox did have a studio that did the best single player and the best multiplayer in one studio. Although I get what he's saying now. I mean, you don't really have that, and a lot of studios don't. A lot of the Sony studios do strictly single player, and I've heard how great Last of Us multiplayer is, but nobody really talks about it. Everybody talks about the single player aspect of that game. So there's not really a lot of games out there that do the best single player and the best multiplayer, because you could argue the best single player games like The Witcher 3 don't even have multiplayer, or something like Call of Duty, which you could say has the best multiplayer, it doesn't really have the best single player. It's kind of hard to get both of those completely right. Someone asked Phil if we were going to get a baseball game this year, and of course he says not from first party. Yeah, they're not going to do a baseball game. I know people want baseball games. They see Sony with the show every single year pumping out quality baseball experiences on the PlayStation, and people want that on Xbox, but there's no money for it, or there's no money to be made from getting the license from MLB, and they don't have a studio to make the game. So it's all on the third parties like EA, when EA used to make those baseball games, and when 2K bought the license and made those, but they stopped. And they honestly stopped because it's probably not profitable. If it was profitable to make a baseball game from a third party like 2K or EA, they would do it. But they stopped doing it probably because it wasn't making that much money. Now Sony does it, and it's got to be making them money, otherwise they would stop doing it. But no baseball game on Xbox for any time. Someone else asked if focus on game release is going to be all around the year's cycle or just strong releases at certain parts of the year. And Phil said better pacing throughout the year makes sense to me. And I think that's the way to go these days. Better pacing throughout the year is the best way to go about it. You don't want to stack everything at the end of the year. You don't want to compete with all the big AAA games. Microsoft has 3 games currently announced to come out for 2018. Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, and Crackdown 3. Those are the announced games. I'm sure there'll be more unannounced games to be revealed at E3, like Forza Horizon 4, or maybe a Halo 6 or something. But it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to dump those games in September and October. It makes so much more sense to string those releases along a few months at a time, like whether it's release Sea of Thieves in March, release State of Decay 2 in May or April, release Crackdown 3 in August, because you can string people around, can keep Xbox in the news. And Sony does this particularly well. They released Horizon Zero Dawn in February, and then they had a bunch of de facto exclusives like Nier and Neo that released kind of almost every month after that. So it was kind of PlayStation on the mind, and it looks like Sony's trying to do that as well next year. With God of War and Days Gone and Detroit Become Human and Spider-Man. You can kind of have that not thought process, but that dominating press headlines, and you're just always in people's minds when you're dropping a game one month, and then another month later you're dropping another game, and then another month later you're dropping something else. It helps keep the brand in people's forefront of thoughts. Like, oh man, we got a game from Sony this month, we got a game from Sony next month, you got a game from them the month after. It really helps with that. And I'm a fan of stringing the games along the entire year, and then at the end you just have all these huge AAAs fight it out. I'm a fan of that. But this is where we get like the response on the work on first party has started. So Tim Dog asked if you were quoted as looking into building first party with possible acquisitions, which I covered on the channel because he did mention that. Now that the hardware is seemingly set with the entry-level S and the premium X, would you say game creation is a core focus for Xbox moving forward? And Phil said, I now feel good about hardware, Xbox Live/services, and operating system. Work on first party has started. Games take time, but I know all 4 areas have to be strong. And that is the one thing about the game industry is games do take time to make, and first party studios take time to make those games. I know you could argue that they did build up first party fast for Gears of War. When they bought Gears of War from Epic, they kind of changed the Black Tusk studio into the Coalition, and they pumped out a Gears game pretty fast in 2 years. So I'm interested in seeing what he really means in this, because we know work on new first party games is always ongoing, right? There is a new Halo game in production. There is a new Gears game in production. So he's not lying when he says there's new work on first party games have started. But what people want to hear is they want to know if the work on first party also includes games that aren't necessarily Gears and Halo. People want the new IP experience. And he's been very upfront about this since the beginning. He had goals he wanted to meet, and the goals are now done, and now it's time to focus on first party. So, whether you hear about these games at E3 this year, or they're 2 or 3 years away, they'll come. The question is, will it be the game you want to play? Because that's always kind of the thing. These games are subjective experiences, and not everybody is going to feel the same way about them when they're not. So, take, for instance, Super Lucky's Tale, a game that came out this year. I enjoyed the game. I reviewed it for my channel, but there are a lot of Xbox fans who are like, I didn't want this game. I didn't ask for it. Similar to Disneyland Adventures or Rush, a Pixar game, the Disney Pixar game, or Zoo Tycoon. Those are games that obviously some work went into. They updated it, remastered it for the Xbox One X and 4K. But a lot of Xbox fans were like, I never asked for this game. This isn't what I want. Even though there is a demographic that would enjoy those games and would buy them on Xbox, the hardcore fans are like, listen, I didn't want Super Lucky's Tale, and I don't want any of these other things. I want something different. So whatever work they're doing on these new IPs or these new first-party games, some people may like and some people won't. That's just kind of the nature of the beast, you know? And then he went on to talk about Steam games. Someone asked if he could play Steam games on Xbox One, and that he said that probably will never happen because there's a lot of licensing and technical challenges. I know a lot of people seem to think that Steam will one day come to Xbox, but I don't really see that happening. And Phil says they're just going to try to make it easier for PC games to come to Xbox One. And then someone else asked if PUBG would be Xbox Play Anywhere. And he says you can't really do Xbox Play Anywhere with games in other digital stores today. That happening is a ways off in our industry. So, once again, Phil answering a lot of questions on Twitter. No first-party baseball game. No collaboration with Steam anytime soon. But work has started on new first-party games. And hopefully we learn about what they are, and it's something people want. Maybe not in the line of Super Lucky's Tale or Disneyland Adventures, but a core game for the hardcore audience on Xbox would be pretty interesting, and one, honestly, that takes advantage of the Xbox One X. I would love to see a first-party game come out in the future that takes full advantage of the Xbox One X. And maybe that'll be Sea of Thieves, and maybe that'll be Crackdown, but we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Anyways, guys, that's the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment below about all this. What type of games would you like to see Xbox make in the future, and are you excited for whatever they bring? Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel or haven't already. Make sure you share this out on Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. Hit the subscribe button, like I said. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you're always notified. And I will see everybody in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.